Hello again, and welcome to Let's Overthink Final Fantasy X. I'm Beth, and this is Fake Geek Girl's Game. Now, as you may recall, we are at the Besaid Island Crusader Lodge, where we just had a lovely nap, and are now going to talk to these people, who not unreasonably want to know everything that we know. Unfortunately, Tidus doesn't know shit.
Why would I?
If Sin's
Me? Hiding anything? What are you talking about? I mean, in some ways he isn't hiding anything, and that he isn't hiding anything that they would believe. We know this because he already told people the truth, and they didn't believe him, so he's fallen back on the answer that causes less difficulty.
Yes, sir. The Crusaders are sworn to battle Sin. We have chapters throughout Spira, accepting all.
The Crusaders really seem more like a citizens' militia than what I would use the term Crusaders for, because there's fairly little violent conquest going on. They're actually pretty cool, and they're actually the less official branch of the Yevonite Church military, which is a terrifying phrase to have to say, I must admit.
Is to protect the temples, towns, villages, and people of Spira.
See, their mission is to do things that are pretty cool.
Is Sin's toxin really this bad, sir?
It does seem rather bad. We could just tell you.
So clearly Sin's toxin is a thing, whether that's actually a toxin or just you got too close to the hole in reality and now your brain's kind of weird. But equally clearly, it generally works more like actual amnesia or unreality episodes and less like you actually having just arrived from Planet Weird. Like, there's another guy who's around here somewhere who says that he's experienced Sin's toxin before. Presumably, it was an issue that he got over since he's hanging around here. Come on, where are you? Are you in here? No, Waka's in here. My geography is not great. Come on, where does he hang out? Mr. Toxin Man. There you are. Yeah, praying worked for him. Probably what worked for him was the brain slowly restoring lost neural connections, but praying didn't hurt for once. Now, I was supposed to be going to the temple, so let's come in here and stare at it. It's awful dark, so it may be difficult to stare at, but them's the breaks when things are lit primarily by ritual torches. I assume all these little statues are dedicated in general or in specific to the summoners who failed.
In that place.
Because it's just the 4 or 5, if you count Unalesca, high summoners who get big, impressive statues where you can more or less work out who they're supposed to be.
I began to
That's
realize
Unalesca up on the left, and then Zayon, her husband, on the right. And then from left to right across, there's Gandalf, O'Holland, Jokun, and Braska. Speaking of which, hi, possible future father-in-law. You're off looking very stone-like today.
And finally, we receive a statue for our temple.
I mean, I'm not surprised it took a while. That's both a lot of intricate carving work and really difficult to transport, especially when, you know, Sin might happen unexpectedly. On the other hand, Besaid is very much an out-of-the-way, kind of low-priority place. Judging by the ruins around it, it used to be much bigger, but really vulnerable to Sin, since if Sin usually, like this one does, comes up out of the sea, small island, bad place.
Entities of great power, the Aeons. The Aeons hear our prayers and come.
So here's summoning in very short version. Just kind of ignore any time you hear the word prayer or blessing, since that's probably not true.
was that we should
But
respect some
the
kind of
Aeons
great
here
man
are
or
something
like
and
that.
come down to us, and they're sure are something of Yevon. They sure are a thing. Pray hard is like the religious equivalent of drink lots of fluids. It doesn't do much by and large, but it won't hurt. At least I don't think it'll hurt. My grasp of religious whatsits is not the strongest, but I don't think that if you pray incorrectly, bad things happen to you. Waka, I want food. I want food! Fine. As we all know, if the game offers you a free nap, it means there's going to be plot, so you might as well take it because you won't be able to advance the plot until you do. This is a lesson we have all learned at great length from situations like this. And while Tidus sleeps, the things people are saying in real life fade into his flashback/dream. He has a lot of flashback dreams.
Perhaps you could go look for us.
People are searching for him now.
Thank you.
I really like Tidus's mom's outfit. I love the sleeves on her yellow whatever it is sweater. Kind of unfortunate that she doesn't get an entire name or anything. Not that I'm bitter about the Nameless Dead Moms Club or anything. Nope.
But if he dies, you'll never be able to tell him how much you hate him.
I'm pretty sure that's massively fucked up parenting, but I'm not entirely sure on whose part and in what way. There are just so many ways that's kind of not parenting best practices, I assume. I've never actually done parenting, but I assume that if your other parent dies, you'll never be able to tell him how much you hate them is not typical. Right, I could look for Waka, or I could go to the place where Waka is located and skip all that. Back into the temple with its lovely... I'm not sure if that's a rug or a mosaic or what. It's very lovely, though.
Well, apprentice summoner, really.
Tidus's policy appears to just be to make vaguely inquiring noises until somebody breaks it down into words that he can understand.
Remember?
So someone is in there somewhere and they haven't come back out. Right, I got it.
A day's already gone by.
Summing things up in the classic quest recipient fashion. I don't need all that extra stuff, just tell me what I have to do.
Besides, it's forbidden.
Hey, but what if something happens? What if the summoner dies?
He's very much still in the mindset of his dream of that time that somebody who was very important in your life just vanished and was never seen again.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
Gee, you think? So, blah blah, Cloister of Trials, blah blah, puzzle dungeon. And then we touch the glowing runes. Ignore everything your mother ever taught you about magical safety and just start touching things. Thus flying in the face of what everybody knows, which is it may explode. Surprisingly few things in the Cloisters of Trials explode. Well, explode at you. Some of the walls do explode. I know someone has done a study of the Yevonite script and symbols. I don't remember who, and I don't know the answers to what any of them are saying. But you need the spheres to do things. Blah blah. Again. Just give me my sphere and we can move on. You can only carry one sphere at a time, even though you have two hands, and in situations where there's a summoner and at least one guardian, you assume they have generally about 4 hands. And in this game, you will have up to 14 hands available at any given time, but you can still only carry the 1 sphere. I'm not sure how it would know if Tidus shoved an extra one in his pocket, but it would, apparently. Really, the Cloisters of Trials only make sense with a certain amount of gameplay and story segregation, because I don't want to start asking myself questions about how we explode the walls and it all gets reset, or why this is such a challenge for summoners, or for that matter how the destruction sphere stuff got in here, because it's in chests in the thing, but you also need to get all of it to open the way to Anima. So did Seymour just go around to all the temples, including Xanarkand Temple, hiding his keys there, and why? Is this one of those, like, Attack of the Supervillain things, where they start doing really stupid shit instead of just disposing of their secret keys where nobody will find them, like, in the ocean? So I am going to do all the Destruction Sphere stuff because, as aforementioned, Anima, which, if I'm going to start overthinking this game, I had better be ready to commit to overthinking Seymour's issues. And also, in some cases, including this one, they're pretty good gear. This weapon for Yuna won't be equaled for a good while. Definitely worth giving to her. Come on. Something you don't pick up right away, or I didn't pick up, is how, because everybody has exactly one kind of weapon and one kind of armor, things aren't... there's no, like, swapping armor around the way there is in a lot of other games. It didn't occur to me as odd the first time I played it because this was my default, but...
Hey, it's okay. Only summoners, apprentice summoners, and their guardians can enter here. It's a tradition, very important.
So what
It's a
about
tradition, meaning no actual reason, but, you know, sacred spaces. That's often one of the things. Limitations on who's allowed in them. Maka is trying to be the responsible adult person, but he's really easily dragged into the weird stuff Tidus does.
Guardians protect them.
He's not very good at being a responsible adult person.
The guardian's in there now. One of them's got a short fuse, and who knows what the other's thinking.
I hope they can hear you describe them that way.
Might as well go all the way.
Hi guys. Yeah, this guy kind of ran through the cloister, and I followed him just to make sure he didn't do anything extra stupid.
No, it's just...
I really love Lulu's hair decorations.
See, I told
They're
you
my
she gets
favorite
mad.
element of her character design. Can you guess what my least favorite element is? Trick question. I have 2.
Is the summoner all right?
Who are you?
Are you the ghost of my dead boyfriend? If so, could you please stop? Fortunately, rather than torment anybody further, but especially Lulu, Yuna's actually just about done in there, finally. And this is a rather odd kind of first meeting. She's collapsing after being in there, exerting herself mentally, if not physically, for a day and a night. She's sweaty and exhausted, and so happy And basically, if you don't like Yuna, I don't like you. Oh no, Tidus thinks. She's cute.
Man, was I surprised. And here I was thinking summoners were all old geezers.
The good news is that Tidus ran about doing stuff in the fairly laid-back Besaid temple, so... no getting in trouble happens here. Instead we get to go out to see the pretty show. I wonder if that show is always traditional, and if summoners who haven't succeeded have pretended to, and that's why they instituted the demonstration, or if it's just cool.
Ready?
I mean, that must suck to be an apprentice summoner and go through the cloister with your guardian or guardians. So it's not even just you, and then you stay there for hours and hours and hours. And slowly it becomes clear that nothing's happening. Nothing's going to happen. So now what do? Do you have to go out there and admit you couldn't do it? Or do you just keep pushing? Summoning is always really impressive in Final Fantasy games, but I think this specific sequence is one of the more impressive ones, all told, because it's outside of battle, so there's only one enormous monster thing on the screen. And Yuna walks up to it and pets it, because... And in some ways, that's more impressive than, summoning it to fight. It's, she can just reach out and touch that. I really like, actually, how the summoning sequences have her interact physically with the Aeons.
I had never seen anything like it.
Makes
in my
them
life.
look much more connected, much more a part of the world.
But still, I could feel a strange kind of gentleness coming from it.
Bye, Valifor. And yes, Valifor is going to stay Valifor.
That night, we talked for the first time. I didn't know it then.
He talked to a
after
girl.
That night, everything changed. For
God,
everyone.
that's this game in summary. A series of points after which everything changed. But clearly, Tidus' first time talking to a cute girl is critical. But before we can do that, we're going to have a sports movie.
His memory's a little fuzzy, so don't mind him if he says anything odd. Come on, say hi.
It is really hilarious how this whole game is pretty serious from the start. But a hefty chunk of the early plot is the underdog sports team story. It's also interesting how they start out with the goal of doing their best and switch to wanting to win, because usually, at least in American sports movies, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be good to want to do your best, and it's the bad team that wants to win a lot. Tidus is distracted from this new team goal by the fact that a pretty girl is smiling at him. It's not even like he's never had this experience before.
You heathen!
Stay away from the summoner! You're a bad man!
Oh,
Lady Yuna,
but
be
I'm a
careful.
puppy dog.
But it was really my fault to begin with.
Yuna being Yuna, she's taking responsibility that she doesn't really deserve or need. Yuna also being Yuna, she isn't letting anybody else decide how she thinks.
Oh no, I was overconfident.
One thing I really love is how their body language is so expressive.
Really? Do you
Like,
think I can become High Summoner?
it looks awkward here, but that's not because the motion
Come play with me some more.
capture modeling is awkward. It's because they're being awkward.
So, tomorrow then.
Tomorrow?
We're going on the same boat, aren't we?
Oh, really?
We can talk more.
Huh.
God.
You
know,
can
Mr. Sports
tell me
Star
all
is so
about Xanarkin.
awkward. Wait, so
She's cute, yeah?
has Waka already mentioned Xanarkin to Yuna? Like Tidus's weird stuff?
Don't
Yeah,
get no
she's
ideas.
cute.
No promises
I
there,
mean,
big guy.
Tidus pretty clearly
Hey,
thinks
but
she's
what
cute.
if she, like, comes on to me?
That's not going to happen. If you get tired, let me know. I had a bed made for
He's so wrong, but you can see why he thinks that since, you know, Yuna's kind of going on her death journey. He probably was not expecting her to want to start a new relationship. Come on. Come on,
Ready
Waka,
for
I want
bed?
to sleep.
you. Good.
Yes,
Sleep tight.
sleep. Since anytime you wander over toward Yuna, the old lady shoos you away again. Instead, back to the Crusaders' Lodge, which is where this village keeps its extra beds, to have a nice sleep. Well, nice may be a misnomer, but at least to have a dream that isn't a flashback, but just a dream for once. Which is kind of pleasant.
Where's that
These
boat?
are the Besaid docks.
Everyone will find us if it doesn't come soon.
You really sure this is okay?
Huh. Just
Would
thinking
you
how
Take me to Xanarkin?
in Tidus's dream they're worried about being found or something.
You said you'd go with me.
I wonder what that's getting at.
Oh, hey.
I'm really glad this, putative love triangle in no way manifests outside of this dream.
Did?
While Tidus, runs in place the way one does in dreams. Shut up, Dad. You don't tell me what to do.
Catch a ball. Oh, what's the matter?
Oh, God.
Gonna cry
And his
again.
dad Jack yells at him, and he
Only thing you're good
is mentally a little kid cowering from his father again.
Huh? What'd you say?
You have to speak loudly.
Meanwhile, these nice people in his dream encourage him to stand up to his father and yell at him.
Do it.
Yelling is good.
I hate you!
Fortunately, everybody else in this lodge sleeps a lot more soundly than Tidus does, so he doesn't wake up the woman in the corner by abruptly yelling that he hates the world.
Surprised too, the first time I saw him.
Instead, he can head out to eavesdrop.
But no matter what he looks like, he isn't Chapu. You shouldn't
Waka
have
and
brought him
Lulu
here
have
in
a
the first place.
complicated relationship that I'm really interested in, especially that they're both
Excuses
grieving
again.
the same person in different ways and at different
That's it.
speeds, and in
No more.
some scenes
Enough, Waka.
appear to be kind of angry or frustrated with each other for not being on the exact same page. I mean, yeah, fair. Waka is definitely replacement baby brothering at Tidus, but what was he supposed to do, just
Scary.
leave him? That's not how
So-
Waka works.
Who's Chapu?
My little brother, Chapu.
He found it, and it followed him home, and he's going to keep it.
He was with the
Yeah,
Crusaders.
fill in a
when
little
they
more important
Sin
backstory here.
He didn't make it.
You may recall
First
that
tournament, they
Waka
had a tournament.
described
So that's why.
his poor tournament performances.
I became
Something
a
else was
guardian
on my
to fight
mind.
sin,
I couldn't
yeah?
focus.
Revenge then?
And now you
That was the
hear
idea.
just how much of an understatement that
I'm
was.
worried about a stupid
Oh,
game now that
something
avenging my
else.
brother.
Like I just heard that my brother was
After the
dead.
next tournament, I'll be a guardian full time. I know it kind of looks like I'm using you, but I'm not.
Don't worry.
I think he's, in some ways, more self-aware than anyone, including himself, gives him credit for, at least about
What I mean
this.
Thanks, Waka.
That it looks like it's that he's doing a replacement, like, projecting thing with Tidus, but I think he's actually moving on in a healthy way. Being able to relate to people in a way that's very important to him. In the same way that being distracted by Blitzball is actually a healthy sign, in that depression and other serious, mental illnesses often are accompanied by losing interest in things that you were interested in.
Use it well.
Also, he has a really shiny sword to give you. It's really pretty and gets a couple upgrades throughout the course of the game, so it stays kind of on par.
Where's Yuna?
Like here, it's like, is he giving Tidus Chapu's sword
When the last calm started.
The calm?
because he's projecting Chapu onto Tidus, or is it because, well, Chapu's never going to use it now, there's really no point in having it gather dust? I kind of think the latter.
We should leave together.
We're not leaving without Yuna because Yuna is the reason for the season.
You really don't need all that luggage.
She also appears to have a sudden lack of infinite inventory.
For the temples we're to visit.
This isn't a vacation, Yuna.
I guess you're right.
This metaphor should be fairly transparent. Something something baggage, something something having to leave things behind. But also that if she were going on a vacation, I assume she'd be bringing these gifts to the temples because she's a visitor. But as a summoner, that's not required of her or expected. So here we are, about to hit the battle details tutorial, because although there aren't many very defined classes when it comes to physical attackers, different characters are definitely good at different things by default. Due to the way the sphere grid works, of course, you can change that. I'm playing the original version, not, I forget what they call the new sphere grid, but the default version. So everybody's pretty much locked into their paths for quite a while. You could unlock them, but that would involve playing no sphere grid for a while until you could get the spheres you need, and I'm not really about that. Oh hey, it's another type of thing.
Watch this.
There is no option to not be kind of dumb here.
Told ya.
You have to try to punch the flame.
If you can't beat them down, you gotta use magic of an element they don't like.
Magic? Element?
Let's have our black mage show you what I mean.
Yes, Tidus, magic has elements.
Clueless, aren't you?
I hope you can imagine how after this 4-element system being the way I was introduced to Final Fantasy magic elements, some of the other games were very confusing. Especially 3-element systems, or ones with, 12 elements, some of which hardly ever appear. Like, Earth and Air have never really gotten what I'd call full representation in terms of spells. They're sometimes there, but not, but they generally don't get a full spell line, especially Earth. Now Yuna's saying goodbye.
Take your time.
It looks so small from out here.
Let's get going, man.
We're gonna wait.
Tidus, be quiet.
Are you ready?
He may not know
What's
yet that
going
this
on?
is what they think is going to be Yuna's last sight of the place where she grew up, but he does know that something's
It's an ancient
off.
custom. People leaving the island pray here for a safe trip.
Well, you know, when in Rome, and
Said he
no
thinks he's
reason
bored.
not to, I'm gonna pray here. Ironically, Chapu's problem was not on the boat trip. And we, who have all prayed here, are going to encounter what I would call difficulties on the water. I would not call what we're about to have a safe trip. Just, you know, pray in case. You can no longer go down that sideways path because of reasons. Presumably those reasons are that you wouldn't be able to get out the other end, and also you wouldn't have access to some of your party members. Since of the ones we have so far, only Tidus and Waka can fight underwater. Alright, I got some comments about the Albed primers, and apparently in Japanese, one of the primers will cover multiple symbols. So there's that. They haven't really gotten the hang of fur yet, but you can see a creditable effort. And Kamari looks much more strange in the FMVs. His proportions are different. And fight that I don't have to win, but I'm going to anyway because, I don't know, I feel like I'm proving something. Dragoon alert. A lot of the characters, like Kamari, has bits of a couple different standard Final Fantasy job classes. Like, this is a Dragoon move. This is default Overdrive, which, by the way, Kamari, how exactly did you do 2 jumps in sequence like that? I know you were cheating.
That's enough.
The computer is so rude. And he's also the Blue Mage, which is a fun job.
What's with that guy?
Kimari Ronso, of the Ronso tribe. He's learned the Fiend's way of fighting.
That's not what I
No, I didn't say, who's that guy? I said, what's with that guy?
Sometimes we don't understand him either. Kumari doesn't talk much anyway. But he has protected me since I was a child.
It must have been a rough 10 years for Kamari. You know, completely cut off from his home culture and his people. I mean, admittedly, considering how he left said people and culture, maybe not as rough, but still horribly isolated. Giant, enormous bird.
A flyer. That's your department, right?
Bird, bat
True.
thing.
Why don't we let our
When I
summoners
start
show
looking
us
at their anatomy in more detail, I'm kind of distressed. Blah blah switch party members, blah blah do the thing. Win prize.
your first real battle? Let's see some style.
Show us what your
First
training
battle?
has taught you.
I'm not entirely sure how it can be her first battle if you can't get to the beach, which everybody in town seems to be able to do without running into a couple of these things. Maybe everybody in the village has no encounters armor, but since part of the goal is for summoners and guardians to get stronger, they left them at home before going on their travels. Good a reason as any. I mean, other than monsters only attack you when they have detected your plot relevance. Here's Valifor, and here's Sonic Wings, which is one of your more hilarious abilities, because it inflicts delay, which means that Valifor's gonna get 6 attacks or something like that to every 1 this opponent gets. You don't get to do things. Naturally, by the time you get along a little farther, everything that you want to use delay on will become immune to delay, and instead you have to scream and try to get things done in a hurry. But that's due to the status ailment law of diminishing returns. Do violence to it. Valifor's advantage as an Aeon is also being flying, which none of the others are, means that she has much higher evasion. Rather than have a flying typing, this game just gives all of the creatures designated as flying much higher evasion. Not these big guys, presumably because they're, literally the size of a broadside of a barn, but those birds that Waka attacks and similar, and Valifor, all have significantly higher evasion, are much more likely to dodge attacks. Now, I stepped out for a moment that I did not bother seeing to go back to the village and grab Valifor's second overdrive. Valifor starts off with Overdrive Energy Ray, but then if you go through a certain sequence of actions back in the village, you find that a dog has dug up, quote, something mangled and slobbery, end quote, which causes Valifor to learn Energy Blast. I can only assume that the something in question was some object that belonged to Valifor long ago when she was a human. Some kind of memento. Or, I guess, a mystical object. So, I'm going to show off Energy Blast right here. I would say it's definitely worth it, because it is an order of magnitude more powerful than Energy Ray. Can come in handy since Valifor is, on the face of it, your weakest Aeon. Still one of my favorite ones to actually use, because of the increased evasion and reasonable speed without it. There are some of the slower Aeons can get taken to pieces by a group of monsters just because they never get to act. Bahamut is really bad for this because you'd think Bahamut was, awesome and badass, but I've seen him get torn to pieces by a group of monsters that he could absolutely defeat any one of, but they all get to act like 3 times before he does. I really like the scenery in this game. The scenery and the background music. It makes Besaid Island very calm, peaceful, and idyllic. Something I'm having Yuna do a fair amount is guarding during a battle, because you only get experience for a fight if you've performed an action. Guard takes less time, but counts as an action, so in situations where I'm going to be leveling for a bit, probably not needing to heal much, I like to have Yuna do that just so that she continues to level. So, we're getting close to the beach, and that's close to being all. Thank you for joining me on Let's Overthink Final Fantasy X. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment down below or visit our Tumblr, fakegeekgirlsgame.tumblr.com. As always, your support is important to us, so like, subscribe, comment. See you next time.